Hey, what's up? How's it going? I just kind of want to point out some stupidity that's really going on in the world right now. Like, how is everything becoming so stupid that people can't even tell what proper is? Like, proper education. The fact that people are trying to segregate kids in schools and stuff now. Here's a couple topics I want to go over. Listen to this. And this is Tiffany Meyer, and she does a fantastic job. Subscribe to her channel, Deep Dive with Tiffany Meyer, because she does a fantastic job.
Are all school teachers and staff members to be vaccinated or submit to weekly tests? That's under a new order by the state's governor. Now, speaking of schools, a new bill in Oregon allows high school students to graduate without proving they can read, write, or do math. Oregon Governor Kate Brown has...
What the hell? What the hell? Then, I mean, what's even the point? And let's hear why this is done.
Quietly signed the bill into law last month, but her office did not announce the signing. In addition, the Oregonian reported that the move wasn't entered into the legislative database for about 2 weeks, and that people who signed up for alerts about the bill never received one. An aide to the governor told the paper that suspending the proficiency requirements for graduation would benefit Oregon students of color. The bill suspends the requirements while the state's Department of Education conducts a review. The department's been told to keep an equitable approach in recommending changes to the proficiencies needed for a high school diploma, as well as identify the causes of graduation disparities and whether the requirements have been applied inequitably to different student populations. Critics have likened initiatives such as these to critical race theory and say it puts low expectations on people of color. And before we end,
Think about that for a minute. Low expectations? Well, this is the thing. You can look back at the statistics, you can look back in history, you can look at everything that has to do with this. Thomas Sowell even makes really fantastic points about what's going on here. How can you expect taking away education from someone for them to do better in life? How are people going to be prepared to do things? And if you say that like it's to boost people of color, which doesn't even make sense, people of color, everyone has different colors. Like, that's the stupidest phrase anyway. But calling minority students and saying that they need a lower standard in order to achieve better and to progress as well as other students, how does that make any sense? You know, and if you're going by classification of color with people, then why do you then how can you ascertain the better students being, you know, Asian students get some of the best grades across the entire spectrum? And what about them? Aren't they minorities? Like, what's going on here? All you're going to do is prevent black people specifically from furthering themselves in life. How do you expect them to do better if they have a lower standard of reading, if they have a lower standard of mathematics and writing and understanding of history? This doesn't help anybody. This makes it worse. It's almost like the left is trying to perpetually make specifically black students do terrible, so they always have someone or something to blame. And then the people on the left and the Democrats are going to deny that they had anything to do with this. Meanwhile, they're the ones passing bills like this to make it so they're not going to have as good of an education as other students. This is terrible. Now let's go over to the next guy. Roman also does a fantastic job. This guy is another channel you should subscribe to. It's Facts Matter with Roman. Blankentoff, right? Balmakov. Sorry there, Roman. Let's hear what he's reporting on.
I really hope you check it out. And now let's
hope you check it out too.
To Atlanta. You know that weird feeling when you go to visit your child's elementary school only to learn that the kids are being segregated by race?
Yeah, this is another topic. What's funny too is I've run into this guy a few times in the subway when I worked in the city. But this is another topic. This leads... First, I want to get into this because the way he does it in this video, and this goes right into what we were just talking about. So he covers both topics. Let's hear this.
Well, hold on a moment, you might say. This is 2021. That doesn't happen anymore. Well, in at least one elementary school over in Georgia, it does. In fact, a mother has just filed a complaint against her daughter's elementary school, alleging that they were segregating black kids in order to give them what they said was more opportunity.
Let's talk about this for a second. So we have Democrat, radical liberals, and socialists in this country that are claiming that they're here to help black people, and they're doing everything bad for them. They're segregating them in different classes. They're bringing back segregation, people. These are the same Democrats. They never changed since the Civil War. Think about it. They're doing the exact same things that not only were they doing pre-Civil War, but even after. And they're pretending like the side switched. The political side switched. That never happened. And apparently not. Like, think about what's going on here, folks. Please, please just think about this. They're telling black kids in order for them to do better, they need to get segregated. Right? So why? So they can pump in crazy, radical, racist theories into their head to make it feel like they're never going to fit in and they're never going to further themselves. And then what do? They make it so they have lower standards and they don't give them a complete education now. How is that going to help anybody? I mean, if you want to talk about systematic racism, that's it right there. It's all being pushed by the Democrats. Like, think about every single thing that's happened. And this is funny because I never realized until recently, you know? I was always kind of into politics, but I never understood enough, and I never understood history and until just a few years ago when I really started taking my personal time to really study into these things about the history and about how parties started and about who is who and what happened when and the Civil War and all this stuff. And I'm really starting to realize that all the crazy, radical, racist stuff, and when they say racist stuff, it's all coming from the left. All of it's coming from the left. Just like how people don't want to admit that the Nazis were left. They were leftists. They weren't right, they were socialists. The Nazis were radical left socialists. Just like these people. And look what they're doing. It's no different than what the Nazis started doing in segregating people. How can people not see, no pun intended, but how can people not see what's going on here? It cannot be any more obvious.
This mother's name is Kyla Posey, and here's what she said during the interview with a local news channel over in Georgia. "We have lost sleep over this, trying to figure out why would a person do this." She further said that she was stunned when she learned that Mary Lynn Elementary School was segregating classes based on the race of the children. And she said that this policy was put in place and condoned by the principal of the school, a woman by the name of Sharon Briscoe. Here's how the mother explained her feelings when she found out about this policy. "It was disbelief that I was having this conversation in 2020 with a person that looks just like me, a black woman. It's segregating classrooms. You cannot segregate classrooms. You can't do it." Now, the way that this mother found out about this policy in the first place was that she went to the principal and she requested that her daughter be placed into the classroom of a certain teacher because she thought that that particular teacher was a good fit for her daughter. However, the principal informed her that this wasn't possible. Here's how the mother described the conversation. The principal said, "That's not one of the black classes." And I immediately said, "What does that mean?" I was confused. I asked for more clarification. I asked, "We have those in the school?" And she proceeded to say that, "Yes, I have decided that I'm going to place all of the black students in 2 classes." So just to reiterate, this principal, who herself is a black woman, she decided to segregate this elementary school. The black kids could only be placed into 2 specific classes with specific teachers, while the white kids were placed into 6 different specific classes with a different set of teachers. The principal said that this segregation would give the students more opportunities. However, when this mother insisted that her child be placed in a classroom alongside white students, the principal pushed back, and she told her that her child would be isolated because, after all, it wasn't a black class.
What is any of that supposed to mean? Think about that. What are they going to do next? Have black-only fountains and white-only fountains to drink from and bathrooms? What is going on? I can tell you, man, I can tell you. You know, I was born in the 80s. And I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and racism was hardly a freaking thing. I grew up in all sorts of different places. I moved a lot when I was younger. I moved a lot. And I went to about 12 different schools. Like, it wasn't easy for me. I came from a poor family. My parents were divorced. And we grew up in a lot of diverse neighborhoods. And racism was not a thing like it is today. How has it gotten worse? You know, it became more radicalized since Obama. Why is that? It's like the first 2 years we had Obama, it was all right, and then all of a sudden it started getting so radical and so racial. You know, like the following 6 years, it got really bad. And stuff like, you know, BLM and Antifa that were being backed and paid for by the Democrats. The same people pushing for segregation in schools. The same people saying, you know, don't give black people the same education as white kids. What is going on? If you can't see this, if people can't see what's happening here, I feel so bad. It's just becoming more radicalized, and the left is yearning for it. It's like they want it. It's like they've been able to successfully brainwash kids into thinking that bad is good and good is bad. It's so disturbing, and it's so dystopian with everything that's happening. It's like turning into all those sci-fi movies that I grew up on in the 80s and 90s. And I feel so bad for anyone who doesn't know that. Anyone that was born, you know, in the late 90s or in the 2000s, I feel so bad because everything just went over their head. And I don't mean to talk down to anyone who's from that time period or later on, but it's like, if you don't remember 9/11 or anything before then there's so much history that you're lacking and not understanding. And it's why they're, you know, pushing all these injections and stuff, because people don't fight back for it and people don't understand what it's like after your freedoms have been taken. You know, the world used to be so much more relaxing and so much more free before 9/11 happened. It really was. You know, you didn't need to get scanned when you were in the airport. People didn't, like, check your bags like crazy. You could just walk onto an airplane, sit back and relax. And they come down the aisle, they ask if you want a drink. You know? It's like, and now look at this world. You can't do anything. You can't do anything without, like, permission from someone.
Here's the mother's opinion on this matter. My community, had they known about this, would probably be extremely upset. Not just the black parents, but also the white parents. And because of all this, Ms. Posey has now filed a discrimination complaint with the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights. According to her lawyer, by conducting segregation, the school is violating federal law. Here's what the lawyer said on this matter. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 says that you cannot treat one group of people differently based upon race, and that is what is going on at Mary Lynn Elementary. Now, according to Fox News, the Atlanta Public School District has confirmed that they probed these allegations and they took what they called appropriate actions, although they did not actually elaborate what those were. Here's what the school district said in a statement. Atlanta Public Schools does not condone the assigning of students to classrooms based on race. The district conducted a review of the allegations. Appropriate actions were taken to address the issue, and the matter was closed. Now, we here at the Epoch Times, we reached out to both the Atlanta Public School District as well as to the Department of Education for comment on this case, but we have yet to hear back. However, what's interesting to note is that this whole episode is taking place just 2 months after the Georgia Board of Education passed a resolution which said that students should not be taught about critical race theory in the classroom. Back then, which is again just 2 months ago, here's what the governor of Georgia tweeted out. I applaud the State Board of Education voting today to prevent critical race theory from being taught in our classrooms. This dangerous anti-American ideology has no place in Georgia schools. If you'd like to learn more about the school segregation happening over in Georgia, I'll throw a link into the description box below this video to a story so you can dive deeper into the subject.
Critical race theory is also designed to exacerbate all this stuff, to perpetuate it, and to make it more instilled in people's heads. They want people to be segregated. And a lot of this ideology comes from the left that's also being fed stuff unknowingly from foreign entities. China is one of them. Like, how do you take down America? You take it down from the inside out, and you can have patience, and you wait, and you watch these generations grow up, become less and less self-dependent, independent, and they become more and more dependent. And you're seeing this happen in real time. People that are around right now, you people are watching this in real time, and there's so many people that are denying this because one is they're so confused and brainwashed because they're told that this is okay, and that it's the right thing to do, and they've had disinformation and misinformation. And the other part of those people are ones who are just mentally disturbed. They are insane. They're angry. They have really shitty lives. Their lives suck. They've made terrible decisions, and so they want everyone else to suffer the way they are. And so they're vindictive, is what they are. And that's what the left is. The left tends to collect all the people who have no hope, who have no real skills, who have, problems, people that are, can hardly contain themselves and are on lots of medication. Like that, those are the kind of personalities that the left tends to get. Not saying all of them are like that, but a vast amount of people on the left are that type. And then what do you see on the right? I'm pretty centered, but in the last 2 years or 3 years, I feel like I've slowly shifted a little bit more to the right. I used to be a liberal. I used to consider myself a liberal, even though the word liberal has changed now. It's not people who don't want government. It's people who want government to do everything for them now. Like, it's so bizarre what's happened politically. And the younger people are so oblivious. They don't even know what any of these terms mean. They just repeat it. It's so crazy. It's so crazy.
And all I ask in return is that you take a quick second to smash that like button. Because obviously it goes without saying that videos that are like this, talking honestly, factually, and transparently about what is happening in this world, are routinely censored, throttled, or sometimes outright removed by big tech giants like YouTube. However, when you smash that like button, you are forcing the YouTube algorithm to share this video out to potentially thousands of more people, letting the truth be known far and wide. Now, while we're in the topic of schools, let's move on over to Oregon. And while some schools are addressing the race issue by segregating their classrooms, Oregon is taking a different approach. Just 2 days ago, it was announced that the governor of Oregon signed a new bill into law which will allow high school students to graduate without proving that they can read, write, or do math. This bill, which is officially called Senate Bill 744, it says this in relevant part, quote, students may not be required to show proficiency in essential learning skills as a condition of receiving a high school diploma over the next 3 school years.
What does that mean?
Now, you might be asking
That's
yourself,
so stupid.
why is this bill exactly necessary? Well, according to Mr. Charles Boyle, who is the governor's aide, he told a local newspaper out in Oregon that suspending the proficiency requirements will benefit people of color. Here's what he said. Oregon's Black, Latino, Latina, Latinx, Indigenous, Asian, Pacific Islander, tribal, and students of color, leaders from those communities have advocated time and again for equitable graduation standards, along with expanded learning opportunities and supports. Now, specifically, what this bill actually does is it suspends the graduation requirements for the next 3 years while a review is being conducted. That review is going to be carried out by the Oregon Department of Education, and according to the text of this bill, officials there must identify, and this is a quote, the causes of disparities that have resulted from the requirements for high school diplomas in the state, and whether the requirements for high school diplomas in the state have been applied inequitably to different student populations. The bill further states that the Education Department should use a process that is equitable when developing recommendations for changing the requirements for a high school diploma, which they will now have 3 years to do. Now, the Oregon Education Association, which is the largest teachers union in the entire state, they supported this move. In fact, on their website, it says that they have worked for years to eliminate the essential skills test, claiming that the test can act as a one-size-fits-all standardized test barrier to graduation for students who may otherwise have more than enough proficiency and skill to graduate and go on to great success. However, at a public hearing back in March, Mr. Duncan Weiss, who was a member of the Board of Education when the essential skills requirement was first adopted, he thought that this was a bad idea. Here's what he said. While the essential skills requirements weren't reviewed as do all aspects of the diploma, they should not be jettisoned at the outset. These requirements, which have been in place for a decade, were established through a long consultative process by the state board. On the flip side, though, a woman who wrote a letter to the panel, she actually agreed with getting rid of these requirements, saying that the testing also leads teachers to teach how to take a test, rather than teaching them how to think, how to analyze information, or how to problem solve. Our children deserve better. If they have passed the classes required for graduation, additional testing is just a way of keeping people from achieving their potential, not helping them in any way. Now, we here at the Epoch Times, we reached out to the governor's office for comment on this new bill, but we have yet to hear back. Regardless, if you'd like to read more about the story, including if you'd like to read the full text of Senate Bill 744, I'll throw those links into the description box below this video for you to check out, which once again is in the description box right below that like button, which I hope you take a moment to smash. And now let's move on over to Texas.
I won't cover that story. I mean, that's so stupid too. Maybe I'll make another video about that. But do you see what's going on here, folks? Do you see? The Democrats never changed. They are the same slave-owning party that they always were. So, I'll leave it at that. Just wanted to bring some info for you. You know? Love everybody. Have a great day. Take care. See you next time. Like, subscribe, and I'll leave those links below. Bye now.